My friend, hear this with the ears of the Spirit. There are moments in history, moments ordained by heaven, where the calendar of man collides with the calendar of God, and one of those moments is set apart, marked before the foundations of the earth, September 5th, 2025. This is not just another date, not just another sunrise, not just another turning of the clock. It is a divine appointment. For there are days when God interrupts the flow of ordinary time, and suddenly what seemed unshakable begins to shake. What seemed closed is opened. What seemed lost is restored. There is a mystery in this appointed time, for God chooses dates not at random but with purpose. He weaves them into His pattern, into His signs, into His promises. And when He speaks of change, it is not the change of man. It is transformation by His hand. On that day, chains can break. Doors can swing wide, and what has long been withheld may come rushing forth. It will be a day that calls you to decision, to faith, to stand in the place where heaven and earth converge. For some, it will be a moment of unveiling. For others, a season of testing. But for those who prepare their hearts, it will be a doorway into destiny. Do not dismiss this word. Do not look at it as ordinary. For when God marks a day, it is because He desires to meet you in it. Watch, pray, be ready, for what comes will not leave you as you were. September 5th, 2025 is written into the scrolls of time as a day of change, and if you receive it, your life will not remain the same. ChatGPT said in the scroll of eternity, before the first light broke through the void, before the sun was hung in the heavens, before the dust of the earth was shaped into man, there were moments already set apart, appointments sealed not by the will of man, but by the breath of God. These are not random intersections of days and nights, but sacred convergences, and one of these has been inscribed into the fabric of time itself, September 5th, 2025. This is not an ordinary day. It is not merely the turning of a calendar page. It is not the routine passing of hours. It is a divine appointment, a moment when eternity steps into time, when the purposes of heaven break into the flow of earth. Understand this mystery. God is the Lord not only of creation, but of time itself. Time belongs to Him. Every second is His. Every season is His. And yet within the endless procession of days, He chooses certain moments, sanctifies them, marks them, and declares, "This is mine." The children of Israel knew this truth, for the Lord commanded them to remember the modim, the appointed times, the sacred convocations. These were not man-made festivals, they were divine appointments. Times when God Himself promised to meet His people. Days when heaven aligned with earth, when the temporal aligned with the eternal. And so it is with September 5th, 2025. It has been set apart, not by man's design, not by the turning of the seasons, but by the decree of God. Why does God appoint times? Because He is a God of order, of patterns, of mysteries woven through creation. Nothing is by chance. The stars in their courses, the tides of the sea, the rising and setting of the sun, all move by His design. And in that same design, He weaves appointments of destiny. Appointments that bring forth change, moments that release His will, seasons when promises hidden are revealed. You may think tomorrow will be like yesterday, and next week like the last, but the God who interrupted Abraham on his journey, who called Moses at the burning bush, who shook the earth at Sinai, is the same God who appoints days in your life to break the pattern, to shift the course, to bring the new. September 5th, 2025 is not just a number on a page. It is a living declaration that God is sovereign over time and history. And when He marks a day, He is declaring that something has been set in motion. There are days that alter the destiny of nations. There are days that alter the destiny of lives, and there are days that alter both at once. Look to the day when Israel crossed the Red Sea. That was a divine appointment. Look to the day when fire fell on Mount Carmel. That was a divine appointment. Look to the day when the Spirit descended in Jerusalem, filling the disciples with power. That was a divine appointment. None of these were accidents. None of these were coincidences. They were moments written into God's plan before they unfolded. So too, this day has been written into His scroll. But do not miss the mystery. The appointment of God is not passive. It does not simply arrive whether you are ready or not. Divine appointments require divine readiness. On the day of Passover, the blood of the Lamb had to be applied. On the day of Pentecost, the disciples had to be gathered in prayer, waiting in unity. On the day of Jericho's fall, the people had to march around the walls as commanded. If they had refused, if they had dismissed the appointed time, the blessing would have been missed. A divine appointment demands a human response, and so it will be with September 5th, 2025. The day has been marked. The question is, will you be ready to walk into it? Consider the weight of this truth. If God ordains a day, He ordains it with purpose. That purpose may be to release breakthrough in your life, to bring deliverance to your household, to shift the course of your destiny, to open a door long shut, or to close a chapter that must end. But you cannot enter into the fullness of that day with a heart unprepared. When the Israelites failed to prepare for the day of visitation, they wandered in the wilderness. When the city of Jerusalem failed to recognize the time of Messiah's coming, destruction followed. Preparation is the key. The appointment is certain, but your response determines how you walk through it. Do not mistake delay for absence. For many have prayed and asked, "When, Lord? When will you answer? When will you move? When will you open the door?" And the heavens have been silent, but silence is not absence. Delay is not denial. Sometimes the answer is waiting in the appointed time. A seed may lie hidden beneath the earth for months, even years, before its appointed season to break forth. A vision may seem dormant, forgotten, but then comes the day when it is fulfilled. September 5th, 2025 may be that day of fulfillment, the day when what was hidden is revealed, when what was dormant springs to life, when the seed planted long ago bears its fruit. The enemy will seek to blind you to the appointed time. He will seek to distract you, to keep you busy, to make you dismiss it as ordinary. For he knows that when God marks a day, He cannot undo the appointment, but He can try to make you miss it. He can cause you to walk through it unaware, unready, unbelieving. That is why you must not treat this day as common. It is uncommon. It is holy. It is a day when God desires to intersect with your story. Think of the parable of the 10 virgins. All of them were waiting for the bridegroom, but only half were ready when He came. The appointment was certain, but not all entered in. The difference was readiness, and so it will be. The day is coming. It is fixed. It is appointed. But will your lamp be filled with oil? Will your heart be watchful? Will your spirit be awake? For if you are, you will enter into the blessing of the day. There are days when a single moment changes everything. One day Joseph was in a dungeon, and the next he was standing before Pharaoh, exalted to the palace. One day David was a shepherd boy, and the next he was anointed king. One day the disciples were hiding behind locked doors, and the next they were filled with the fire of heaven, shaking the world. These were not ordinary days. They were divine appointments, and what God has done, He will do again. Understand this: when God ordains a day, the entire universe bends toward it. Events align, circumstances shift, hearts are stirred, opportunities arise, and doors open that no man can shut. Heaven itself moves to bring about the purpose of that moment. And when you stand in alignment with Him, you are swept into that flow. September 5th, 2025 has been woven into the fabric of your journey. It is no accident that you are hearing this word now. It is no accident that your heart is stirred. God is preparing you for what is to come. So do not live as though every day is the same. Do not drift through life as though the calendar has no meaning. There are days that mark you forever, days that divide your life into before and after. This is one of those days. It is not man's day. It is not the enemy's day. It is the Lord's day. And when He marks a day, heaven and earth must obey. There are moments when the power of heaven breaks into the weakness of earth, when the hand of God reaches down and alters everything in its path. September 5th, 2025 has been marked as such a moment, for on that day, the chains that have bound may be broken, the doors that have remained shut may be opened, and the promises that seemed lost may be released in full. It is a day ordained not for the ordinary, but for breakthrough. It is a day in which the impossible bows to the will of the Almighty. For years, some have carried chains that weighed upon their souls, chains of fear, chains of addiction, chains of sorrow, chains of failure, chains that whispered, "You will never be free." But what man cannot break, the Spirit of God can shatter in a moment. Think of Israel and Egypt, bound in slavery for centuries. No king, no warrior, no uprising could free them. But in one night the chains of a nation were broken, and the people walked out not as slaves, but as a people of destiny. That was the power of God's appointed time. And in the same way, September 5th, 2025 carries the potential for chains to fall from lives that have been held captive. It is not the strength of man that breaks chains. It is not willpower. It is not determination. It is the anointing of the Lord that shatters the yoke. In one moment, what seemed impossible becomes reality. The prison doors swing open, and the captives are set free. On that day, what bound you yesterday will no longer bind you. What held you in darkness can no longer hold you when the light of God shines forth. There is a reason that Paul and Silas, chained in a Philippian jail, began to sing at midnight. For as their praises rose, the foundations of the prison shook, the chains fell, and the doors opened. That midnight was their appointed time, their divine visitation. And September 5th, 2025 may be the midnight of your deliverance, the shaking of your prison, the opening of your door. But chains are not the only thing that fall on a day marked by God. Doors long shut can swing wide. There are seasons in life where you knock, and it seems no answer comes. You strive, you labor, you pray, and yet every door seems sealed shut. But when God decrees an open door, no man can close it. He is the one who opens and no one shuts, who shuts and no one opens. On September 5th, 2025, doors you thought were sealed forever may open suddenly before you. Opportunities that seemed lost may appear. Paths you thought closed may unfold. The hand that holds the keys of David has set apart this day to turn keys in locks, to break the seal, to open the way. Consider the Israelites at the Jordan River. The land of promise was before them, but the waters stood as an impassable barrier. Yet at the appointed time, when the priest stepped into the river, the waters parted and the way was made clear. The river had been a closed door, but in one moment it became an open passage. So it is with divine appointments. The door that stood against you can, in a moment, become the doorway into destiny. September 5th, 2025 may be the day when the river parts, when the impossible gives way, when the way opens before your feet. And yet, beyond chains broken and doors open, there is a deeper mystery. There are promises long delayed that are released in the fullness of time. Think of Abraham waiting year after year for the promise of a son. Think of Joseph carrying dreams that seemed to mock him in the pit and in the prison. Think of Simeon waiting in the temple for the Messiah he had been told he would see before his death. These were not denials, but delays until the appointed time. And when the appointed time came, the promise was fulfilled. Isaac was born, Joseph was lifted to the throne, Simeon held the Messiah in his arms. You may be carrying promises, visions, words spoken over your life, seeds planted in your heart long ago. Perhaps you have begun to doubt. Perhaps you have asked, did I hear correctly? Was it real? Has God forgotten? But he has not forgotten. The vision awaits its appointed time. It will not delay forever. It will not fail. September 5th, 2025 has been set apart for the release of promises. On that day, what has been held back may be loosed. What has been delayed may come forth. What has been hidden may be revealed. There is power in a divine release. When the Israelites left Egypt, they did not leave empty-handed. The wealth of Egypt was placed in their hands. What had been withheld for generations was suddenly released in a single night. When the Spirit came at Pentecost, it was not a trickle, but a flood. Power poured out from heaven, filling them with boldness and fire. The delay was over, the waiting complete, and the release came suddenly. And when God releases, it is not by measure but in fullness. Yet there is something to understand. Chains do not break unless they are placed before Him. Doors do not open unless we stand ready to walk through them. Promises are not received unless the heart is willing to believe. The power of September 5th, 2025 will not simply passively fall upon all, but it will come to those who watch, who pray, who expect, who prepare their hearts. Faith is the hand that receives what heaven releases. Without it, the gift is missed. With it, the impossible becomes possible. Imagine standing before the walls of Jericho. For days, the people marched, and nothing happened. The walls remained tall, unshaken, immovable. Yet on the seventh day, at the appointed moment, the sound of the trumpet filled the air, and the walls crumbled. If they had stopped on the sixth day, they would have missed the miracle. If they had grown weary and walked away, the walls would still be standing. But because they persevered to the appointed time, the breakthrough came. That is the power of a day marked by God. That is the power of September 5th, 2025. Do not underestimate the enemy's fear of such a day. For he knows that when chains break, captives are free. He knows that when doors open, destinies are fulfilled. He knows that when promises are released, the purposes of God advance. That is why he will seek to cloud your vision, to drown your faith in doubt, to weary you before the day arrives. He will whisper, nothing will change. It will be just another day. But it is not another day. It is the Lord's day. And when it comes, everything can change. The power of this appointed time is not only personal, but generational. The chains that break may not only be your own, but those of your children and your children's children. The doors that open may not only be for your steps, but for the generations that follow. The promises fulfilled may not only bless you, but ripple outward to those around you. One day of breakthrough can alter a family line, shift a nation, change the course of history. September 5th, 2025 carries such weight. What God does in that moment will not be contained. It will overflow. So lift up your eyes. Do not look at the chains as unbreakable. Do not look at the doors as permanently shut. Do not look at the promises as lost. Look instead to the one who appoints the day, who commands the seasons, who speaks and it is done. For when he marks a day for breakthrough, no chain is too strong, no door too sealed, no promise too delayed. September 5th, 2025 has been written into the story as a day when heaven will move, when the power of God will be revealed, when lives will be changed. There are moments in history when heaven and earth meet, when the divine purpose breaks into the flow of time, when the hand of God calls his people to stand and choose. September 5th, 2025 is one such moment. It is not merely a date to be observed. It is a call to decision, to faith, to readiness. It is a summons from eternity to align your life with what God is doing. For there are times when the Spirit says, "Awake, arise, take your place." This is such a time. Throughout Scripture, whenever God marked an appointed day, it was not only about what he was about to do, it was also about how his people would respond. At Mount Sinai, the Lord descended in fire. His voice thundered. His glory covered the mountain. But the people were called to consecrate themselves, to wash their garments, to prepare their hearts. The power of God was not revealed in isolation. It was revealed in the context of a people who had been summoned to prepare. September 5th, 2025 is a day like Sinai, a day when the call goes forth to ready yourself, to cleanse your heart, to fix your eyes not on the things of earth, but on the one who appoints the times. Faith is not passive in the face of an appointed moment. Faith is active. Faith hears the call and responds. Think of Noah. He was warned of what was to come, though he had never seen such a thing. In faith he built an ark, and his obedience preserved not only his life but the future of mankind. Think of Joshua. When called to cross the Jordan at flood stage, he did not wait for the waters to part. He stepped in first, and the waters fled before the feet of the priests. In every appointed time, faith was the key that unlocked the miracle. September 5th, 2025 is a call to that same faith. It is a call not to wait passively, but to prepare actively, to step forward even when you do not see yet, to believe even when the evidence seems absent. And yet, this day is not merely a call to faith, but a call to decision. When Elijah stood on Mount Carmel, he summoned the people of Israel and declared, "How long will you waver between two opinions? If the Lord is God, follow him." That day was a moment of decision. It was not enough to remain in indecision, to live with divided hearts. The fire of God fell when the people turned their hearts back. September 5th, 2025 is such a day of decision. It is not a day for lukewarm faith, for wavering, for divided allegiance. It is a day to choose to commit, to align yourself fully with the purposes of God. When heaven and earth converge, neutrality is no longer possible. You cannot stand still when the call of God is before you. You must decide to step into his purpose or to remain outside it. And that decision shapes destiny. On the night of the first Passover, the blood on the doorposts was the line of decision. Those who obeyed, those who marked their homes, passed through into deliverance. Those who did not were struck by judgment. The appointed time made neutrality impossible, so it will be with September 5th, 2025. It is a time when the call of God will confront you, when the Spirit will whisper, "Choose this day whom you will serve." But it is not only decision and faith, it is also preparation. You cannot walk into an appointed moment unprepared. The disciples were told to wait in Jerusalem until they were clothed with power from on high. They prayed, they gathered, they remained watchful. And when the day of Pentecost came, they were ready to receive. Had they scattered, had they doubted, had they abandoned the wait, they would have missed the outpouring. September 5th, 2025 is an appointed day that requires preparation of heart. It is a call to clear away the clutter, to let go of distractions, to fix your heart on what is eternal. It is a call to prayer, to holiness, to expectancy. Preparation is not only spiritual but practical. Noah built an ark. Joseph stored grain. Esther prepared her heart with fasting before entering the king's presence. Preparation is aligning your life with what God has declared. It is saying, "Lord, if you have marked this day, I will be ready to step into it. If you open the door, I will walk through. If you break the chain, I will rise and move forward." Preparation is faith expressed in action. But why does God appoint days that require faith, decision, and preparation? Because He desires partnership with His people. He does not act apart from them, but through them. He calls them to stand, to believe, to obey, to prepare, so that when the moment comes, they are vessels through which His power is revealed. The Red Sea parted not when the people stood still, but when Moses lifted his staff. Jericho's walls fell not when the people observed, but when they marched and shouted. In every appointed time, God's people had a role to play. September 5th, 2025 will be no different. There is also a mystery of convergence in such days. Heaven aligns with earth, but the forces of darkness also rise to resist. Whenever God moves, the enemy seeks to distract, to oppose, to hinder. On the day the Israelites left Egypt, Pharaoh pursued with his army. On the day Jesus was born, Herod sought to destroy the child. On the day of the cross, the powers of darkness sought to crush the light. But the very resistance becomes the stage for God's greater victory. So it may be with September 5th, 2025. It may not come with ease, but with testing. It may not come without conflict, but through it. Yet in the struggle, the glory of God is revealed all the more. This is why you must be ready. Ready not only for blessing, but for battle. Ready not only for doors to open, but for the resistance that comes before they do. Ready not only for chains to break, but for the enemy to fight harder as they begin to loosen. Faith is not the absence of struggle. It is the strength to endure through it, knowing that God has marked the day and the outcome belongs to Him. And remember this, when heaven and earth converge, it is not only for personal transformation, but for the advancement of God's kingdom. Your breakthrough is not only for you, but for those around you. Your decision is not only about your life, but about lives yet to be touched. Your preparation is not only for your blessing, but for the purposes of God in the earth. September 5th, 2025 is not merely a day for individuals. It is a day for the kingdom, a day when destinies align, when purposes converge, when the plans of God move forward in power. So do not take it lightly. Do not think it is just another day. It is a day of decision, a day of faith, a day of preparation. It is a day when heaven and earth meet, when the call of God sounds, when neutrality is broken, when hearts are tested, when destinies are revealed. It is a day that will divide between those who were ready and those who were not, between those who believed and those who doubted, between those who chose and those who wavered. The Spirit is calling even now, prepare your heart. Strengthen your faith. Choose this day whom you will serve. For September 5th, 2025 is set apart as a divine appointment, a moment when heaven and earth converge, a moment when everything changes for those who are ready to answer the call. There are days that alter the course of a single life, and there are days that alter the course of many lives at once. When God appoints a moment, when He sets a time apart for His purpose, that moment is never without consequence. September 5th, 2025 is not simply another turning of the calendar. It is a day woven into eternity's design, a day that carries the power to transform, to shift, to leave you forever changed. For those who prepare their hearts, who set their eyes upon the Lord, it will be a doorway into destiny. Change in the kingdom is not like the change of man. Man can rearrange, man can modify, man can attempt to control. But divine change is transformation. It is not the alteration of surface details. It is the shifting of the foundation itself. When God changes a life, He does not merely repaint the walls, He rebuilds the house. He does not only mend the torn garment, He gives you a new robe. When He marks a day of change, what emerges on the other side is not the same as what entered in. That is the weight of September 5th, 2025. It is not about improvement, it is about transformation. Think of Saul of Tarsus on the road to Damascus. In one moment, he was breathing threats and violence, determined to destroy the followers of Messiah. But then came the light from heaven, the voice that called his name, the power that cast him to the ground. When he rose, he was no longer Saul the persecutor, but Paul the apostle, chosen to carry the gospel to the nations. His entire life turned in a single moment of divine encounter. That is what a day of change means in God's hands. September 5th, 2025 holds that same potential, for what you have been may not be what you will be. Who you were yesterday may not define who you will be tomorrow. There are some who have lived under labels, identities imposed by failure, by pain, by past mistakes. They have said, "This is who I am, this is who I will always be." But when God appoints a day of change, He removes the old name and gives the new. Abraham became Abraham, Sarai became Sarah, Jacob became Israel, Simon became Peter. Each one encountered a moment of divine change that redefined their destiny. September 5th, 2025 may be your day of renaming, the day when the old identity is stripped away, when heaven calls you by a new name, and you step into a destiny greater than you imagined. But transformation does not happen in ease. It often comes through shaking. Before Israel could enter the promised land, they had to face the wilderness. Before Joseph could ascend to the throne, he had to endure the pit and the prison. Before David could wear the crown, he had to walk through years of exile and opposition. Change is birthed in the place of testing. The appointed day is often preceded by struggle, by shaking, by resistance. September 5th, 2025 may come after such a season for many, yet the very struggle is the sign that change is near. The pressure is not to destroy you, but to prepare you. The fire is not to consume you, but to refine you. And when the change comes, it is not only inward, but outward. The inward becomes the root, the outward becomes the fruit. The transformation of heart produces the transformation of life. The one who lived in fear rises with boldness. The one who walked in defeat stands in victory. The one who was silent begins to proclaim. The one who was wandering steps into purpose. September 5th, 2025 is such a moment of convergence when the hidden work of God within you bursts forth into visible reality. Do not think this change is small. Divine transformation ripples outward, touching more than the one who receives it. When Joseph was lifted from prison to palace, his life changed in a day, but through him nations were preserved in famine. When Esther was raised from orphan to queen, her life changed in a day, but through her a people were saved from destruction. When the Spirit came upon Peter at Pentecost, his life changed in a day, but through him thousands were brought into the kingdom. Your day of change is not only for you, it is for those connected to you. What God does in you becomes a blessing through you. September 5th, 2025 is a day that holds the power not only to transform your life, but to transform the lives of many around you. Yet, transformation requires surrender. You cannot hold on to the old and step into the new. You cannot cling to Egypt and enter the promised land. You cannot keep the old wineskin and contain the new wine. September 5th, 2025 is a day that will call for letting go. To receive what God has prepared, you must release what He has not ordained. You must lay down the old identity, the old patterns, the old fears, the old sins, the old ways of thinking. For only when the vessel is emptied can it be filled anew. The call of this day is not simply to receive change, but to surrender to it, to let the hand of God do what only He can do. And yet there is joy in such surrender, for the change He brings is always greater than what is lost. The fishermen left their nets, but they gained a kingdom. Matthew left the tax booth, but he gained apostleship. Ruth left Moab, but she entered into the lineage of Messiah. What God takes is nothing compared to what He gives. September 5th, 2025 is marked as a day of exchange, ashes for beauty, mourning for joy, despair for praise. To those who are willing, the trade will be made, and the transformation will be complete. This transformation is not temporary. It is not like the resolutions of man that fade with time. When God transforms, it is lasting, eternal, sealed by His Spirit. The world may shift, circumstances may change, but the work He begins in that moment carries forward into eternity. September 5th, 2025 will not simply be remembered as a date in history. It will be remembered as a turning point, a marker, a before and after in your story. Years from now, you may look back and say, that was the day everything shifted, the day God stepped in, the day my life was forever changed. It is not by accident that you are being warned of this time. God reveals the appointed before it comes so that you might be ready to step into it. He does not want you to miss it. He does not want you to treat it as common. He desires you to stand in faith, to prepare in prayer, to surrender in obedience, so that when the day comes, you are positioned to receive the fullness of what He has decreed. September 5th, 2025 is coming. It will arrive whether you are ready or not. But how you experience it will depend on how you prepare for it. This is why the Spirit is calling even now. Calling you to awaken, calling you to believe, calling you to prepare your heart. For this is not an ordinary day. This is not a routine moment. This is a doorway into destiny, a hinge upon which your future can turn. And when you step through, if you are ready, your life will not remain as it was. The chains of yesterday will be gone. The doors of tomorrow will be open. The promises long delayed will be fulfilled. And you will stand not as who you were, but as who you were always meant to be. September 5th, 2025 is such a day, the day of transformation, the day of destiny, the day of change.